Hey, this is Laura. This is my 4th online acrylic painting class that I'm offering for free online. Like I've said before, if you're still working, but you're at home, but you're still earning money, you're absolutely welcome to, and we would love for you to, or I would love for you to offer a donation in exchange for the class. And if you're not working, really feel free to enjoy this class for no payment. My number one objective is for you to be able to do something creative at home while you're locked, while we're all in this lockdown. So I want you to enjoy the class, and if you're not experiencing financial hardship, please consider offering a donation in exchange so I can pay my rent, internet, and insurance on my business, which I still am required to do even though it's shut. So that would help. But do not feel obligated. I want this to be something that everybody has access to no matter what. So this class was scheduled for last night. Today is Sunday, April 19th, and this class was scheduled for Saturday night, April 18th. It's a Georgia O'Keeffe close-up abstraction of purple petunias. So it's going to be a class that's doesn't have a lot of detail in the preliminary drawing and requires mostly blending and shading of purples and blues and some reds. And it'll be really fun. If you haven't watched my 2 prerequisite videos, especially the one that shows you how to blend colors, that one's probably pretty important for this. Also, make sure you have your materials ready. And that's it. We should be all caught up. Next week, what did I have scheduled? Oh, I think it's Van Gogh's Sunflowers is next weekend. So, but this will be the 4th. So that's 4 classes. I'd love to see any art that you've made while following me along in these videos. Please, all the links are below the video where you can send me an email, send me pictures, show me what you're up to. And you can also contact me if you're confused or you're having trouble. So that's something else too. Okay, so here we go with Georgia O'Keeffe's Purple Petunias. Okay, I'm getting ready to begin, and I'm going to start by doing a preliminary simplified sketch on the canvas in neutral shades of purple, maybe some even darker purples, I'm not sure. But what I have here is I have a bluish deep dark purple here. And then I have that purple once again on the plate, but there's white with it, so I'm going to make a light purple to use. Then I have the deep dark purple mixed with a very pinkish purple. And so that should make a more pinky purple. And then I'm going to do the same thing here, but then I'm going to mix it with some white and make a light version of it. And I also have this pinkish purple here by itself. And then I have it with white so I can make a light version. So I'm really not sure. I mean, I'm going to try and keep the colors pretty neutral and not too dark so that I can easily cover them up when I start painting and that the preliminary drawing won't show through. Just so you can see also, here is the purple. Here is the pinkish purple. And here is pink. So you can clearly see that it's not pink, even though it may look that way. It's a very pinkish purple. That's pink. So I'm not using pink. I also wanted to show you that I'm using a recycled canvas. So it's not white, it's tan because it had something on it already, and I painted it with a layer of house paint to just create a sort of, neutral surface. And that was all I had available. My husband just recently went to the hardware store with mask and gloves on and bought me this so I can recycle canvases, which is just really like a primer, which you could use too. How much was it, Tom?
How expensive? That was 17. You get it cheaper.
Oh, this was 17, but it's a whole gallon. It should last me quite a while. And it really blocks out what's beneath it pretty good, right?
Yes.
With 1 coat or 2 or?
Well, depending on what's on.
Oh, all right. Well, anyway, that might be good for recycling a canvas or a painting you didn't like. Something else I wanted to show you is I'm doing a close-up of the Georgia O'Keeffe painting. I'm not doing the full painting. I think it's too much, too complicated. So this is what we're gonna be doing, but let me show you what the image that I had put online, because the full painting is quite a bit more complicated, I think. And I just think it's too much information, it's too much stuff. You know, there's side views of flowers, and then there's sort of like unopened flowers. It's too much. We're just gonna do a close-up to make it a little bit more simple and not quite so difficult. Now, you can watch the video and download the more complicated image from the internet and do that if you want, but I'm gonna do this more zoomed in version of it so it's not so complicated. All right, here we go. So now I've mixed up my paint, and something I wanted to point out is if you look at these colors, like I said before, I have the straight up purple, which is sort of on the bluish side, and then I have a pinkish purple over here. And then I made a color that's a mixture of the two. And so what's nice about that, and I made medium and light shades of each. And what's nice about having the one that's the shade in between the two is that you'll see if it's bluish purple here, and I need to fade into a pinkish purple here, I have this in-between color for all those transition areas that's in between both of those. I'm probably gonna go in here. The color's a little distorted on my camera, I'm noticing, but you'll see with the image that I put next to this that what the actual colors should look like a little bit more. But this is like a deep phthalo or ultramarine blue, and it looks much more neon-y bright blue right now on my screen. But anyway, there's even just plain old blue in here with no purple in it. Here, this is like a bluish purple here. This is blue. So, but I'm just doing the preliminary sketch right now, so I think these colors are good enough for that. And I will walk you through how to do that right now. Okay, I am ready to begin my preliminary sketch. Normally this canvas would be white, but I painted over what was on here with some house paint. It was just some sketchy painting that was on here. So I covered it up with the house paint I had handy, which was like a tan color. So don't be confused. You don't need to do that. Okay, so I have my image where I can see it, and I've got it on the screen next to this image for you so you can look at it clearly. And what I do when I start sketches without a grid, like I had for that complicated Picasso painting, is I look at the elements and the objects that are in the painting or the composition. And I look at how close things are to the edges to figure out how big they should be. And I kind of have an imaginary grid in my mind where I divide the canvas into quarters, or I may even imagine it's in thirds depending on what I'm doing. Or I'll see if how far it is above halfway, and I'm constantly thinking about those spatial relationships when I'm sketching. But I'll say them out loud so you can sort of picture it while I do this. Once again, I want you to keep in mind that when I do a preliminary sketch, it completely gets covered up. So I'm trying to use colors that are, like a medium shade, sort of neutralized, not real dark, not real bright colors to make my sketch with, so that when I do go in to start painting this, I don't have a preliminary sketch that's gonna be hard to cover up. If I do go in with some of these darker colors, I will be doing it in areas where it's dark in the painting, and so that it won't be a problem. But I certainly won't have real dark colors where it's supposed to be light, because then it will be hard to cover up. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and start. And I'm going to use just a middle tone pinkish purple color. And I'm looking at the main flower that I've put in the center of the composition. And I'm seeing that one of the leaves, just slightly from the middle, like so if this is about the middle, just a little bit over, that very top one kind of comes up and goes off the edge of the canvas here. So I'm going to start there as a place to gauge myself. And then when I look at the center of the flower, where it's green, there's like little green stems sticking out. That is, if I were to like look at the image and cut it in half, let's say this is the middle of the canvas. You know, why don't I just draw a line there? It is above that. It's probably, and is it in the middle? No. So let's say this is, like I said, about the middle. Okay, so I've divided the canvas into quarters, just so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so I've divided that. Okay, so like I said, this is going off and it's a little bit beyond the center, and the very middle of the flower is to the left of the middle, so it's over here somewhere, and it's higher than halfway. So I would say that clump of the middle of the flower is about like right here. So this is a good anchor for me to bring the petals down into, because they go into the center of the flower. So flowers in nature don't look like you're used to maybe drawing or seeing them in a cartoony way, where there's a center and then petals coming out from the center. Okay, that's not what we're doing, because we're dealing with angles, you know, looking at the flowers from above or below and from the side or to whatever. So we're not looking straight into a flower. What I see is we're a little bit above the flower, so we can see the entirety of the bottom of the petals, and the top of the petals look sort of folded because we're above the flower a little bit. So as far as our vantage point of the flower. So those little things make your painting look real and like it has depth and more believable, let's say. So, and even though Georgia O'Keeffe simplified her paintings and omitted a lot of detail, there's certainly a lot of obvious skills in perspective, blending, shading, and understanding, you know, how to create depth, even though she didn't make it photorealistic. So, and some would say the genius in her work is knowing what to omit to make the image more powerful. So that's something that you learn as you go along. You start cutting things out and expressing yourself more. Okay, so this petal here it starts to curve and sort of ends about halfway through this quarter. So I need to bring it over further than I did. So let's see. That's got to go all the way over there. And then the petal next to it comes up in front of it, right? And it kind of curves up and does kind of like, makes like a cool fluted shape. And it sticks out and then it curves in, right? And, you know, as I start filling this in, I always adjust. I start to take a look at how wide things are, and I look more at the edges. So when I start filling in the colors, I continue to adjust the size and shape of everything I did. So this is by no means final. It's just like a blueprint or a little map for me to start with, and then I continue to adjust as I'm painting. So if we look at the center of the flower, there's sort of like this area where there's like these stem things coming out. I guess there's one down here, and then there's one up here. So there's like 3 of them, and then we can sort of see their stems going back into space. And from the side of the one that's on the very top, which is about that high, I would say, there's sort of like a dark area where it goes into, like a hole there. So, and I'm going to indicate where this petal is coming out. There's like a petal that comes out here. And then next to it, because I'm just trying to get the right size for the really dark area where it goes way in. So this dark area looks like it's about like that. And then it gets cut off by this petal. So like I said, even though I'm using light colors, I'm gonna take a real dark color just so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to slightly fill this in so I know what that is. It's like a big shadowy area, right? Okay, and then I'm going to use my light color again. And here, close to this, is the first sort of fold in this bottom of this petal. And then it curves down and comes over here and then covers up the next petal slightly. And then from here, like almost straight out of there, comes the next petal. And it kind of comes out here and then it goes in a tad. So it's not a straight line, it goes in and then it comes back out. And then it does that fluted thing that I was talking about. It kind of goes like that and then it flares out again like that, right? So that's this petal. The one above it, the most prominent one, or one of the most prominent ones in the painting, is bigger. It comes out of this fluted sort of curve here. This is a bigger curve than I originally had. And from there, it comes out, so it's higher than I had it. So I'm adjusting this. And it comes out like that. And then it goes up and off the canvas. So now I've got a series of lines here. So to keep it less confusing for you, I'm gonna take my pinkish purple color, because that's mostly what this petal looks like. And I'm just gonna fill this in a little bit to make it less visually confusing. So I know what's what. So I know what is what. And then this comes out like that. Oop, maybe not so much, but something like that. And then it goes in and then it comes back out again. And then it connects up with this line here. Okay, so there's that petal. Oh, so pretty. And then this goes off the page and then it comes down at a sharp angle. And it comes to here, right? And it's got sort of like a line that's not straight. It's kind of like got a lot of character. Now, one of the things you may notice is the way you can tell one petal is separated from another is through shading. So one of the things I see, just as an example for you, is that it's very light here, very pinkish and very light on this side, let's say, right here. And the petal underneath it, and we'll do a lot more detail on this later, but the petal underneath it is like a much more bluish purple and much darker. So for example, there's two different shades and two different colors meeting here. And that's how you can see that they're two separate flower petals. That's just something I wanted to illustrate for you. I'm not gonna fill this all in yet because I'm still just drawing this, right? Okay. Then I'm just gonna go around, and I've noticed that I kind of work that way. That's how I'll fill things in this direction. I kind of work clockwise with how I fill in and finish a painting. So from this fluted end that we have here, right? We see that there's another petal that comes out from there. And it kind of does sort of like a, and I'm trying to see how far down it goes. It goes about to the middle, maybe a little lower, but it comes out and it curves pretty drastically. And then it comes in. And that is very light. So just for fun, so you can see what's what, once again, it's very light here, right? So it meets up with this very purpley blue, and I don't have blue out right now, but it meets up with this next petal that has a sharp angle going downwards. And then the way I will know where this petal ends is I'm going to do the line from the petal. And it's from this object here coming out of the middle. There's a very dark line, right? And it curves off in this direction. And I'm looking at the bottom of the canvas to try and figure out how far away this petal is from the bottom, and it's actually, it's pretty big. Getting a little too small here. Comes down pretty close to the bottom here, maybe in between those two, like that. And it's curved, so there's like a curve here, and then it curves around and it catches up with that. But guess what? I don't think that's long enough, because this is getting too long. So I'm going to bring that up, and I'm going to fix this petal over here. Make it come down quite a bit more. Make it a lot bigger than it was. Maybe that's even wider. Maybe this is more like that. You know? I think I was making it too small. So see how I'm adjusting things? I think that was too small. This comes out from there and curves around like so. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, and then this, I would say, comes out around here, and then it curves in and goes up. There's also some other folds in here, I see, like that, right? Okay. Then there's another petal that comes out of here. Ooh, I have too much paint globbed on there. It's another petal that comes out here. And then it curves in slightly, and then it curves out. And then it kind of curves back in there and goes off the canvas. And then literally like almost dead center, maybe a little to the right, there's like a little area where there's like blue peeking through here. Actually, it's below here. I think that should be more like right there. Okay, it's more like right there. Okay, and then this petal is coming out of the middle here and curving in and then going out. and then comes out about to here. So this goes diagonally, and then it curves up. And then it joins up with that. So you see how I figured out? And it sort of ends here, just barely off the page. And then it comes in. It's not very big. And it curves, right? And then this one comes right out in front of it. So from the center, I see sort of like this drastic curve. But you know what's interesting about it? Okay, so I'll do this curve first. And it comes up to like about here, right? And if you look closely at the reference, there's actually, this is really not the edge of this flower petal. The edge of the flower petal looks like it goes beyond this, but it's in shadow. So I'm just going to indicate that. But where it's lighter, where it's not in shadow, is a little bit above that. So it's sort of a prominent shape. And then this comes out to about here. And then it curves up. And it carries on an angle. And then it goes up to here. And then I would say like from here, if you look at the middle of this, and you made the line go straight across. I don't know. Before I figure out this here, I'm gonna do the next one. So from about here, I see there is a petal that comes out. It's very round. And so it's almost like a circular shape. And it dips down and covers that up. But then it swings up, upward like that. And then it goes way up. It's an interesting shape, like that. And then it almost comes to like a little point, and it curves around this way. And then next to that, cutting that off is sort of like this other shape here, I would say. And it comes out and then curves back. And it meets up with this. This, you know what? See, I'm discovering that needs to be more of a vertical line. So this needs to go up here more like that. Is it bigger? I don't know. It goes up, and then it curves way in, and it goes out, and then it goes off. Let me fill that all in. All right, that's that petal. And maybe the one next to it is a little wider. So I might say that this comes in here more and cuts that off a little more, like so. Right? Okay, so see how I adjust things as I go? Okay, so now we'll go back to this. This one meets up with this up here. And then it goes upward and then back down. Like that, and then around. I think I've got it. And it's pretty light. So I'm just gonna go in here with some light. It's pretty light. Like that. That's the end of that. This, like I was saying before, a curve comes out of here and it curves around more than I had it, I think. And then it dips in and then it comes down here like that. Okay, so I have that too big. And then the one that's below it, that's a good way for me to figure out where that goes to. So the one below it comes out from there like this. And then it sticks out like that. And then it joins up with what I had here. So that looks accurate to me. And I'll probably adjust it more as I'm painting. But what I'm noticing is I might not have enough space around this flower to do everything that's in the background, and that's fine, whatever. Okay, so then sticking out from these two petals, I see a very dark shadow or a petal, I don't know what it is, but it comes out right here and then it curves down. And then about this far from the bottom, it comes to a point, right? Very pointy point. And then it kind of goes off this way. It might even be lower, like that. Somewhere here, curves in, like that. It's all very dark. Do a lot of detail. I'm just putting in some dark so I know what that is, right? Now, we are copying something that an artist did. And the thing that we're not doing that Georgia O'Keeffe did is we're not looking at a flower and coming up with this abstraction. We're just copying her abstraction. That's a whole other set of skills. But here's this shadow. And then there's like another heart-shaped petal back here, and it comes out. See, that's too high. It comes out like around here, and it sticks out further than that. And then it comes around and goes back in, and then it meets up with another shape. Kind of like a little heart there. And that up here, that ends, and it sort of goes into here. So that's where it ends right there, like that. Okay, so there's this shape here that I just did. I could fill that in so you can see it better. Maybe I'll fill it in with a lighter color so you can see, at least down here. You can see that that's not the color it's going to be. I'm just showing you where the object is. This one that's underneath I made too big, so I got to fix that. Okay, so it comes up and sort of covers up this corner. That's where it starts. And then it comes down and comes to a point like we had it. Okay, so that's more like that. Okay. And then behind that is like a super light purple shape of something. I can't tell quite what it is, but that comes out of here and heads down diagonally, right? And then there's all kinds of little shades and there's a dimple in the middle, but I'm just gonna fill it in with this light purple for now. And we will address that stuff later. But it essentially is here. What it looks like to me is it looks like it's sort of like a side view of a flower. So there's sort of like the center of the flower is like right here. And then we're sort of seeing the side of everything, but anyway, we'll get to that later. And then just above that, there's one more petal that comes in here at a much more horizontal sort of angle. And it meets right up with that, right? And then in the upper left-hand corner, there is another center of a flower right here, right? So I'm just gonna draw that out real quick. So right here, I see like another one of those things in the center of the flower, right? And then there's another one like above it. And then there is sort of a center, well, there's like a petal that comes out here and goes off like that. And then you can see the center of the flower where it's real dark is like right around it. That's the center. And then from there is this one petal that we did that comes out, right? And then there's a couple of other ones that kind of go off. So from the center, there's one that goes that way. And then there's another one that's curving off, and then this one goes straight up here. So I'll just fill those in pink. This petal's pink. And I'll make this one lighter so you can see that they're two separate things. Can you see that? I'm gonna move my canvas. All right, there. And then there's the one that's underneath it. Right here. There's like another petal, flower petal. And then there's sort of like a deep dark purple one going off over here, right? And then that goes all the way over to this here. This needs to be lower. See, I'm changing this. This needs to be lower and come down like I had it, but it's much lower. And then, so is this. That is lower. So that we have room for this purple flower petal here. Right. Oops, I guess I forgot. It comes down further like I just said. Right here, yeah, okay. And then, just to make a separation, I'll go in here with like a little light purple so we can see this. And this one kind of comes up and goes over to here. And then there's like green here, but for now I'll just make it super white. It's like green there.
Okay, and then what is next? Then there's sort of like a gray shape, so I'll use this purple here that comes off the end of this petal and goes up here. Right, so I'm gonna put that there. And then it's like white. I'm gonna get some white. Just some straight up white. I mean, it's not totally white, it's sort of gray, but we'll do shading later. But there's sort of like this white shape here that comes around here, joins up with that, comes around here. And then this comes way down to a point. And I'm straightening that out, right? Okay, so see how I just adjusted the edges of that, changed them. This goes off. And then from about here, if you look at the corner of the canvas or the image, that comes down and it joins in with this here, joins in with this here. Sort of at an angle like that. Then it goes up and curves around to that. Okay. So this is what I see, something like that. Let's color that in all white. Might not be permanently the way we're going to keep this, but we're essentially figuring out where things mostly are placed. And then what happens here? This comes underneath that, right? This goes up and then curves around like that. And then there's, my heater went on, so I had to stop the video. Okay, so as a way to gauge what's going on here, because what we have is some sort of like flower on the edge here, but there's this white area here, and then there's one down here. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do that so it can help me figure out where everything is. So from the middle of this petal, not even the middle, yeah, about the middle, a little bit below it, about here, I see a diagonal shape here that comes pretty close to the edge of the canvas, actually. So I better, this might be longer, I don't know. And then there's a petal here, right? It comes up about here, maybe here, and then it comes out and goes in. Yeah, something like that. We'll fix it later. I mean, that's close enough. Okay, so it's sort of like that. And then I'm just gonna go in here to the edge of what I already had. Just connect all of that and fill this in white. For now. So I got that white shape there. Okay, now this is like a petal, right? This is actually petal here that's coming, well, it kind of comes straight like that, and then it curves down, and it goes up and off the canvas, and then underneath that is one that goes in like that, and it comes out. And then, so then the other marker for me would be the top edge of that petal where it sort of folds. It's kind of like curving around, so we're seeing the top of it. This is the inside of the petal, and then the top of the petal folds over, but it's folding over about here. So it comes out and just does a curve, and it almost goes to the edge of the canvas. You see that? It goes way over here. So there's like a shape here, and then it curves and it comes over to this, right? And I'm seeing that maybe this comes out more. So I'm just gonna use a little purple, make it come out more. Quite a bit more. And then from here, like I was saying, this comes out and up. And from inside there's a shape that goes this way. Oops, it's too gloppy. And it kind of like joins up with this white, duh. Okay, so here's the edge of the white. So that's the edge of that petal. And it comes down and meets that, right? And then there's a line here. Like that. Because it goes from deep dark purple to a medium purple to a much lighter purple that way. There's a gradation, but we'll just fill it in pretty dark to establish where that is and what's there, right? See what we're doing. This is all super pale purple right here. Right. And that's really dark right here. All around this. This is all like solid flower petal of different shades that we will address later, but this is all purple in here. All right, so we're almost done with our basic rough blueprint, right? This is really dark here too, right here. Okay. I guess that's white there, and I could have done that in this corner, white and gray. We'll do later too. And I'm not going to make this blue. I'm going to make that white or gray. All right, there's the basic layout. That's how it's done. Actually, I wanted to make this kind of dark purple over here too. So fun. This is going to be fun now. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I am going to just do my first coat of filling everything in, the basic shades of what's going to be there as a first coat, like a base coat. And then I'm gonna go over it with like a second or maybe even a third coat and shade. So, and each time I do a coat, I will look at the relationships of the shape of the petals and the sides of the canvas and try and make sure I'm happy with, you know, how wide things are and whether or not things are placed in the right location. And so I will continually adjust the edges and how wide a petal might be and how close it might be to a corner as I'm doing each layer. And so you will see, because I'm not really gonna talk now. I might talk when I really start shading, but what I'm gonna do now, at least for the first coat, is like if I see that it's light here, I'll put a lighter purple here. I'll put darker colors where I see them. I'll put blue in areas that I see it, but I'm gonna do it kind of sloppy. It's just a first coat, and it's still, once again, maybe a little bit more refined version of my blueprint and my preliminary stuff before I really go in and do detail. And as I do that, so like if I see that it's blue in this corner, as I put the blue in and as I put a shade next to the blue, I can see if the shape is really how I want it. So I can adjust things as I'm filling stuff in. So you'll see how I do that. The shape of this may change as I start filling it in. And that's what you need to do when you do your second layer. So as you go in and you start, your first layers of filling in. So as you do it, you should continually be looking at the picture and seeing like, okay, I see it's light there, it's about this wide, and then there's this other shade next to it, and then there's a line. And so as you're examining your reference and filling things in, you can still continue to adjust the shape of everything and the width of things and the length of things by comparing all things to each other and looking at your reference. So every time I do a layer, I do that. So so it's like each time it's almost like imagine a camera lens. Right now this is a blurry, we're looking at a super blurred out image. The next coat I put on would be like turning the focus on the camera a little more, and we'll make it a little sharper, we'll make it more proportional each time I do a layer. And as I go, it will get sharper, there'll be more contrast, things will be in the right place, it'll look neater and more refined until we have it in complete focus with the last layer that I do in the final touches. So now I'm going to fill it in. I'm going to continually check to make sure that I like the way that things are relating to each other and that I'm happy with the proportions while I'm filling it in. And then I'll stop. And so that'll be sort of sped up. And then I'll stop, and then maybe I'll talk to you about what I did. And I may, when I go in with my next layer after that, I may talk to you a little bit about shading, and then I'll speed it up again. And you'll see how I continue to refine it and focus it. So what we have here is essentially my very first sloppy fill-in of basic colors, which aren't even totally accurate. I tried to do some of it so that it looked a lot like the reference, but my most important objective was just getting sort of like basic colors down, even if they weren't completely accurate. And continuing to work on the size relationships by looking at this shape in comparison to this edge, and reconfiguring how wide some of these leaves were. I completely changed this because when I came around here I realized it was off. So now when I go in with my second coat, because I might even do a third coat because this paint is pretty transparent, but now as I go in with my second coat, I'm going to refine it even more. I'm going to really look closely at the shape of each petal as I fill it in and its relationship to the shapes around it. and how much this petal may be covering that one. And it's easier to notice those things when you start putting in details of lights and darks and particular shades of color. When I'm looking at the particular shades of color, I might notice that there's a blue shape over here, and I might notice the size and width of that shape, and then I can look at it compared to the rest of the petal, and I may decide that the petal's too wide or too skinny. So when I'm in the process of shading and refining, it becomes easier for me to fine tune the composition and make the shapes correct. So I'll probably be adjusting the edges of things, going in with more true to the reference colors, and being more accurate and careful with my shading. It could be my last layer, but I don't think it's gonna be. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and do this in fast motion. And you know, before I start, because I have these colors from my basic layout, I might mix up a whole batch of more thorough colors to use for this layer. So if I do, I will show you the colors before and after I mix them. That's probably next. Okay. Okay, so now I have gotten paint out that I think I want to use. And I'll just explain some of the colors to you. You may not have them. If all you have is phthalo and ultramarine blue and some purples and pinks, that would probably be good enough. But I happen to have more paint than the average person, so I got out some colors I actually really like, so I'll explain them to you. This is ultramarine blue. So there's a lot of blues. There's cerulean blue, there's phthalo blue, there's ultramarine blue, there's azure blue, there's cobalt blue. But when I look at the image of Georgia O'Keeffe's Petunias, it looks to me like she used phthalo blue and ultramarine blue. I don't even know if she used phthalo, but those are the blues I took out. So I took out phthalo blue and ultramarine. I don't see cobalt, I don't see cerulean, I see these two blues. I happen to have a purple that's called an ultramarine purple, so it probably goes well with the ultramarine blue, so I just got some of that out. This is called dioxazine purple, which is a very strong pigment, a lot like the phthalos. And it's a brilliant, beautiful purple, so I got that out too. And this is a lighter version of that, I'm pretty sure. So you'll see when I mix these up, they'll probably look a lot like that. I just thought I'd stick that there and see if it was the same. And then going into the pinks, because I do see a lot of pink in the flowers, I have quincinedrone violet. It's one of my all-time most favorite colors there is. It's a violet color. It's in the quincinedrone family, which I don't know, maybe that's some chemistry name. I don't know what it is, but I just love it. It's a beautiful, brilliant violet, which is sort of like a pinkish purple. It's just gorgeous. So I'm sure I'll be using some of that. And then I have just permanent violet, which is also a really beautiful color. And this is a quincinedrone also. This is a quincinedrone magenta, so it's a pink color. And then for fun, I just have these Blick acrylic paints that I have that are fluorescent. So I don't know, they're not very strong pigments, so they don't really cover a lot. I was using them when I did my underpainting, and they're pretty see-through. But I like the brightness of them, so I also put those out. So something else I wanted to say is for each color I have just the straight up color, and then I have a smaller pile of the color with a very little bit of white, so I can just make a lighter version of it. And then I have the color with a lot of white and less paint. So I can have dark, medium, and light, if that makes sense to you. Dark, medium, light. Dark, medium, light. And here it's kind of, I didn't have enough room, so I have dark, medium, and there's more white with this one. And then here I have the pink and purple mixed together, and one of them I'm just gonna leave as purple and pink, and one of them I'm gonna mix with white. And same with this fluorescent purple pink. I have it by itself, I have it with a little white, and then I have it with a bunch of white. There's purple underneath there, you can't see it. Same thing here. I have the pure pigment, then I have a little white, then I have a lot of white for all the colors. So you'll see, I'm gonna mix these up now, and then I will turn the camera back on, and voila, all the colors will be mixed, and you will see what I'm talking about. And voila, it's all mixed up. That was my little video trick that I wanted to try. Anyway, here they are. So sure is pretty once they get mixed up, isn't it? So this is the Quincinedrone Violet that I was talking about. I'm sorry, this is the Quincinedrone Magenta. This is the Quincinedrone Violet. This is the Permanent Violet Dark. These are the two neon colors. And I have them mixed with a little white, more white, and even more white so that they go from dark to light. And over here, I have the Phthalo Blue, which is very bright and brilliant, and the Ultramarine Blue, the Ultramarine Violet, the Deoxazine Purple.
Ticking clock, everyone stop, 'cause everyone's saying different things to me, different things to me. Everyone's saying different things to me, different things to me. Do you believe in what you see? There doesn't seem to be anybody else who agrees with me. Do you believe in what you see? Motionless, sweet, nothing is real. Wasting my time in the waiting line. Do you believe in what you see? 9 to 5, living life every day, stealing time. Everyone's taking everything they can, everything they can. Everyone's taking everything they can, everything they can. Do you believe what you feel? There doesn't seem to be anybody else who agrees with me. Do you believe in what you see? Motionless, sweet, nothing is real. Wasting my time in the waiting line. Do you believe in what you see? And I'll shout, I'll scream, but I'd rather not be seen. And I'll hide away for another day. Do you believe what you see? Motionless, sweet, nothing.
I was getting ready to go in with my second coat over my initial sloppy coat, which I did. I did that here and here. And then I guess I haven't done this yet. This. But anyway, you get the idea. So if you look at what's over here, that's essentially my second coat. I spent a lot of time adjusting the shapes, and while I was shading, I was able to differentiate that this was just its own petal and there was a petal behind this, and that this is actually the center of a flower here. And so I did a lot more detail. I also fine-tuned the color and that's why I wanted to talk to you. For the center, I used a color I have that's called Phthalo Turquoise. Phthalo Turquoise. You'll find when you buy paints, a lot of times you can mix up these colors yourself. Phthalo Turquoise is essentially a mix of phthalo blue and phthalo green. So that's what this is. So if you have any phthalos, phthalo blue or green, you could just add any kind of green to it or any kind of blue to it to make it sort of a turquoisey green color for the center of the flower. So that's what I did there. I also added a little bit of black to the green, and I added a little bit of black to my dark purple violet shade for the center of the flower. So I did use a little tiny bit of black as well. I will be using black and white again because these white areas on the painting, from what I see in the reference, have gray in them. So that's a little tiny bit of black mixed into white. Not solid, it's shaded. But anyway, the reason I am talking now because what I'm going to do is I'm going to just absolutely finish the painting now. I'm going to do what I did here to these three things, these three petals and this background area here. And then I'm going to go in with my final touch-ups, my final adjustments, and my final shading. And then the video will be over.
Around here anymore. There's no question that I love you, but I'm living in my own time. But here I am debating whether I'm wrong or right. Waiting there till your time, ticking clock. Everyone stop, 'cause everyone's saying different things to me, different things to me. Everyone's saying different things to me, different things to me. Do you believe in what you see? There doesn't seem to be anybody else who agrees with me. Do you believe in what you see? Motionless sweet, nothing is real. Wasting my time in the waiting line. Do you believe in what you see? 9 to 5, living life every day, stealing time. Everyone's taking everything they can, everything they can. Everyone's taking everything they can, everything they can. Do you believe what you feel? There doesn't seem to be anybody else who agrees with me. Do you believe what you see? Motionless sweet, nothing is real. Wasting my time in the waiting line. Do you believe in what you see? And I'll shout, I'll scream, but I'd rather not be seen. And I'll hide away for another day. Do you believe what you see? Motion